Hello and welcome back. This is the second episode of our brand new No Man's Land Batman's podcast extravaganza. My name is Matt, and I'm joined by my good friends.
Mike.
And Vincent.
And today we're talking about five different issues in Cataclysm, which is the lead up to No Man's Land. Correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. So we're starting with Shadow of the Bat 73. Do you want to jump into that, or do we have any preamble before that?
Not really.
Other than this is basic, we're going to be talking about the earthquake hitting and I think the first aftershock that hits.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the earthquake is officially going to hit in this
real
episode.
quick, I do want to say this. If it isn't obvious yet, we don't have a real name for the podcast, so all of our rabid fans leave suggestions in the comments down below right after you like and subscribe and ring that bell.
Ring that motherfucking bell. So we're going to be stretching Cataclysm as the way they call the arc across 3 episodes.
Okay.
And so it'll take 4 episodes total to get through the Cataclysm book. And tune into the first episode because this is the second episode, but also because I show you what the Cataclysm book looks like.
The Cataclysm book is also out of print now, so if you find it somewhere and you want to get all of No Man's Land, pick it up.
And on that note, Mike, start us off.
Yes. So Batman Shadow of the Bat number 73. This gorgeous painted cover here of Batman's hand crushed under a bunch of rubble as we see the Batmobile, the dinosaur, and the penny kind of launched behind it. But we open in Gotham City, and then we immediately, on the credits page, see Batman getting buried by a bunch of rubble. We have Alan Grant. Yeah, it's very odd. Mark Buckingham is the penciler here. I believe he was the penciler at the end of the first issue we just talked about the last episode.
Yep.
But Alan Grant is writing now. So as night falls over, Batman gets an alert on the Bat computer right as the whole fault line rips right through the middle of the Batcave and Wayne Manor as Oracle's talking to him, and Oracle gets hit in her clock tower and falls out of her chair. And then Alfred is setting up the dining room table, and he falls to the fault line as well. And this is where we establish that all buildings built by Bruce Wayne are earthquake proof, so they're going to be fine. Ironic, though, the only building that Bruce is that won't be safe is the Batcave because he couldn't earthquake proof it because to hire workers and come and do it, they'd obviously see the Batcave and his secret would be exposed. So I kind of like the idea that, all right, we're going to have this huge event and we're going to immediately take away Batman's home base of operations, at least his main one, because he has caves, like mini caves and hideouts set all around the city, which we might touch on in this.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the sequence of everything in Wayne Manor's crashing down. We see the grandfather clock, the penny. It's all following, crashing. Batman's trying to make a bad dash for the car and the Batmobile, and then just that's completely taken out. By the way, one of my least favorite Batmobile designs, so I'm happy to see this one destroyed here. I've never liked that Batmobile. We cut to Harvey Bullock, Detective Harvey Bullock, on the Gotham City Police Department, part of the Major Crimes Unit, buying some stogies in the mall. Is Anarchy, the teen vigilante, is watching him, and we see that. Yeah, what do you want to know about Anarchy?
Literally anything. Who is this kid? Why is he in this book? Should I care about him? I don't.
So Anarchy is just like a teenage vigilante. He doesn't actually have much to do with anarchy. He's more like an Eastern mysticism inspired, like dumb philosophy. He's basically Alan Grant's pet character. So Alan Grant is a British writer who is one of the co-creators of Judge Dredd with John Wagner. And the two got hired by DC as part of the early British invasion and put on the Batman books. And John Wagner kind of left pretty quickly due to some disputes, and Alan Grant stuck around. And eventually, as we get into the actual 90s, they give him Shadow the Bat, and he's basically written this entire series. The first arc introduced Zaz, and Anarchy is like his pet character, usually with Norm Brayfogle. And Anarchy had his own ongoing series at a certain point, a mini series and then an ongoing series. Granted, the ongoing series only lasted like 7 issues after a 4-issue miniseries. But Anarchy's a thing. He's kind of like a low tier Gotham vigilante, but usually within Batman stories treated as a villain.
Yeah, but like this villain that always kind of ends up helping too. Interesting enough, he was popular enough or resonated enough with the developers of the Arkham games as he actually has a kind of a mini kind of side mission in Arkham Origins, which is interesting.
I could not stand him for like the 5 or 6 pages he showed up in this book.
I'm not the. He looks wildly different in Arkham Origins. Definitely leaning even more into the fact that he's like a teenage punk kid. I've never really liked Anarchy that much. I actually prefer it only really when Norm Brayfogle draws him. That's when he looks best, I feel. But he's watching Bullock as he's in a mall buying cigars, and the earthquake hits them, and then they both kind of end up in a situation where they need to help each other escape it. So they have to put their differences aside. Right. And then we cut back to Barbara Gordon waking up, and she goes down the clock tower, and her first thought is, let me get to the GCPD and find my dad, and let me see if I can start helping here, because all of her communications are wiped out in the clock tower anyway. So she has no way of getting to Batman, getting any sort of communication to Batman anyway. And she ends up helping out and trying to pick up a cop, tell him, hey, it's your job. It's time to act here. Also, kind of a haunting sequence of a guy who's completely going through shock, as either I think it's his spouse is just crushed in this car, and kind of graphic here. We see blood just emanating from the back of the car, so just completely squished. So, and then we cut back to the Batcave as Alfred and Batman are knocked out, but Batman is perched 100 yards away from Alfred. The world's greatest hero hangs precariously over the yawning chasm that has been ripped in the cave floor. So he's literally hanging by his cape upon this endless chasm. So I like how we end there. Weird that we call him the world's greatest hero.
Yeah, I had some I don't know, kind of mixed feelings on this issue, which I had mixed feelings on every issue that we read tonight, but there's some stuff in here that I really liked. I really liked Barbara Gordon going out there and being basically a hero in her wheelchair. I thought that was really great. I thought the stuff with Anarchy and Harvey Bullock was not at all interesting. And going back and forth between the two made for a strange reading experience, I thought.
Yeah,
I kind of wish I
like
focused on just Babs.
We're submitting early on that, all right, a bunch of stuff's happening at once. So I like that we're quickly establishing that. And I like how we take Batman out initially, too. So we can focus on the side characters more.
Yeah, Batman's not in a whole lot of really this 5 issues we read.
Yeah, I think I like how it seems, at least from the start, that we are going to touch on literally like every major named character in the Batman mythos. How are they reacting to it, including Anarchy? And I think the final page is amazing. Of
great page
hanging by his cape.
Yeah,
I think Buckingham, and we see more Buckingham here, so we can fully comment on it. I think some of his figures in a few scenes are a little iffy, but his storytelling is perfect, and the layouts. And we'll talk about this more on each issue and how each artist handles it. I think a lot of these issues handle layouts very interestingly with the earthquake aspect.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the art in this issue, but I kind of love the panel layouts. I love how, before when it's before the earthquake, everything is they're all a lot of straight lines. Everything's real, almost like a grid. And as soon as the earthquake hits, everything's thrown all over the page, and that's really cool. Even if the art inside the panels, I'm not a huge fan of.
The art we're going to get throughout all of this is a mixed bag, especially as we go on. There's some art where it's hard to just read the issue because it's so bad, or the art doesn't fit the tone of the story at all, especially because I've read a little bit of the first Nightfall volume, and I had that. I was like, why is this artist on this story? But I think Buckingham works here fine. Like we said, the strengths are definitely his city shots and the destruction shots, which this is Cataclysm. That's the main strengths, or we want to basically showcase the destruction of Gotham City. So I can forgive some rough face and figure work because the layouts and the city destruction are what's really going to shine here for the first couple of issues.
I'll carry us into the next issue, Nightwing number 19. Chuck Dixon writing this, and art by Scott McDaniel, who blew up on Daredevil in the earlier 90s with the Fall from Grace storyline, all the armor crap, and then has a long run on Nightwing with Chuck Dixon, probably even more known for that than Daredevil, and then moves on to Batman and kind of touches every little Bat book and a bit of Green Arrow. And I think it's interesting. So this issue opens with, I took note of this, they describe it as a 7.6 estimated earthquake. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but almost every issue here that we read, there's one quick reference to the like Richter scale and what they measure it, and it differs between issues, which I think is actually slightly clever, because it's like when an earthquake is this crazy and everyone's scrambling and everything's falling apart, like, you know, you're gonna have different estimates and like trying to figure out what the hell is going on. I think McDaniel draws the destruction very well in a different way. He's a lot more cartoony style than Buckingham, but you have really chaotic layouts here, and his cartoony style leans into that.
His bridge shot is great, where Nightwing's in the boat and he sees all the bridges are blown out.
Dick is in Bloodhaven at the cop bar because that's his status quo at this point. Dick Grayson is a cop by day and vigilante by night, pulling double duty.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah,
I like that.
He runs out and is like, I better get to Gotham. And he refers to it as being in the north, which made me question whether I need to go back and slightly tinker with my stupid DC Atlas. Because they both have to be coastal cities, but I'm not sure where I had them.
I think he's just referring to it as North Gotham.
Yeah. And also in this issue in particular, and you see it in the other ones, I'm starting to notice all the geographic references. There's constant things like, oh, that street, that bay, that neighborhood, north of this, south of that. And a lot of them, in fact, a lot of the Gotham related stuff is named after old creators and stuff like that. But even most of the ones in this issue, it's not even that. They're not named after anything in particular, but they're just referred to. And there's clearly the Bat Office has a concept of where things are in Gotham City, and there's a real sense of geography. And as we go along, once we get into No Man's Land proper, and I don't think it's developed yet at this point, but they in fact ask I think he was like a production like assistant editor kind of guy. I forget his name, but they drew a map of like a definitive map of Gotham and skyline for the No Man's Land era.
Yeah, we'll see a whole map, especially when we get into territories too. Like when we get into the No Man's Land books, there'll be a whole map of like what villain controls what territory as well.
Ooh, I'm excited for that. I'm a sucker for maps.
Maps and charts, cutaways. I mean, cross sections.
Hell yeah.
And so Nightwing saves some people trapped in a bus that's hanging over a crack and filling with water. And there's a cool moment where a kid mistakes him for Batman. I thought that was clever.
I like that.
And re- I love Scott McDaniel's art, but what really impressed me in this issue was the coloring. And especially in some of these underwater scenes, it's not realistic, but it's also not like super, super stylized. I just love the color here. And basically, of course, Dick Grayson saves everyone. And basically, someone's like, hey, you just saved everyone. We almost just all died. You want to chill out and help us a little bit more and just hang out? And the issue ends with him walking off to save someone else because he has to save someone.
I
And
think you're underselling how good that sequence is, as these people are trapped in a bus and the water's coming in. So it's to a very serious played point where people are taking numbers of like what people are not going to make it out. So Nightwing's kind of racing against a really critical clock here, and him walking away is going, okay, I've done this and this take a lot out of me. Holy shit, we're in for a really long night. Like,
Yeah.
and I don't know where Batman is. I don't know where Barbara is. I don't know if anyone else is safe. I know Tim Drake is safe because he's in Europe at boarding school at this point. So we know he's not really. He'll factor in later.
Mhm.
But as of right now, he's kind of the first critical member of the Bat family, other than that's like in costume that can be out in the field, out and responding to this.
yeah, but just the walk away moment, it's a really
Yeah.
great hero's moment.
Oh yeah, it's great.
And really just reading this, you know what I was thinking of? It'd be great if we shot him in the head.
And changed his name to Rick.
Yes.
Well, what's funny here is we do have a cutaway to the character Tad Ryerstad, who is a sociopath. This is where he comes up with his gimmick name of Night, Nite dash Wing, and later goes on to become a Nightwing villain. He was like a protege that he tried to train, and then he went bad.
Okay, yeah. I was gonna ask about this random guy for 2
Yeah.
pages that shows up and goes nowhere because, man, I
He'll
didn't
factor
like
in
that.
later.
Like this is the first issue of Nightwing I've ever read, and I just thought it was really cool to see him saving people.
Yeah.
Like, I always like when superheroes save people, which sounds like no shit, but it was almost like a really nice single issue.
Well, it's also works because
He's
he's not
really good.
fighting a villain. It's okay. How can I save these people from this natural disaster?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I love this issue. For me, this is the definite highlight of this episode and of our
Strongest
reading.
issue in this batch, definitely.
I agree.
And Matt, what do you think about Scott McDaniel? Have you read any of Scott McDaniel stuff before?
I don't think so. And at first, like when in the first few pages, I really didn't like it. But it grew on me a lot, and by the time we got to the whole scene with the bus and the water coming in, I was really enjoying it. I think that Nightwing looks much better in costume than out of it. There's the one shot when he's on a motorcycle or something towards the beginning. Maybe it's a boat.
He's in a boat. He steals a police boat, so that's how
No,
he gets the
actually
radio about
neither.
people needing
When
help.
he's running to the boat and he's like stripping, I thought he looked really weird.
Yeah,
Just the first few pages in general, I wasn't a huge fan of, but by the end, I kind of loved it.
the other big book Scott McDaniel works on for DC that you probably eventually are going to read when you get around to it.
Is
He's
it
one of the
Martian
artists
Manhunter?
on Jeff Johns. He's one of the artists on Jeff Johns, not just the but Flash Run.
Oh, yes, I will
No,
get into that
no, it's
eventually.
not. It's Scott Collins. I'm sorry. No, never mind.
Yeah.
I always get those too confused.
I'm sure I'll get around to that eventually. Yeah.
Next part, Batman 553. This is Doug Monk, and we have art. Pretty interesting art team. We have Klaus Janson on pencils, which is pretty rare, and Sal Buscema on inks. I didn't reverse that, right?
Crossover of creators on both shows now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Monk has been on Batman since 481 and also had a long run pre-crisis.
Wow.
So a lot of these creators, Dennis O'Neil, Doug Monk, Alan Grant, and Jim Aparo, these are longtime Batman creators.
Yeah.
And Monk's, and the issue before this, 552, before No Man's Land, was Kelly Jones' last issue of Batman. So we're not really good. He might do a cover or two or something, or maybe he does a random one-off issue. But unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you are, I don't think we're going to talk about Kelly Jones on this podcast that much.
I'm fine with that. I'm not a big Kelly Jones Batman fan.
And yeah, like I said, usually this art team, you'd expect the opposite. Nowadays, Sal Buscema has definitely become an inker, but I mean, through the Clone Saga, we had a lot of Sal Buscema pencils and inked by interesting people like Bill Sienkiewicz. And Jansen, of course, one of the greatest inkers of all time, often with Frank Miller.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Did we lose him?
Okay. Yeah, it's froze again. Oh, now he's back.
Oh shit. So we have Lucius Fox, major Batman mythos character in a Wayne building. He gets pinned as the earthquake starts. And then Batman saves Alfred with the giant penny. And Alfred makes a very terrible pun about his last name, Pennyworth.
Yeah, Gordon almost getting crushed by the bat signal too.
Yeah, I was really enjoying this issue until Alfred made that terrible Pennyworth pun, and then, man, that just, I don't know, that took me right out of it.
That's pretty good, Alfred, though. I like that.
Is that how Alfred actually is?
Normally not a bad pun, but normally he's there to make a smart-ass comment to Batman.
Okay.
Rookie comment.
Babs rolls into the GCPD and shoots off a gun.
She does a desk pop.
Yeah, she basically takes over the Gotham City Police Department and the fire department.
And I loved that. This issue made me an Oracle fan. I think she's so cool in this.
Yeah, she's awesome. She's going to do more and more cool stuff.
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
And then Bullock. So Bullock shows up, has some rebar stuck in his arm.
He just casually strolls in,
and he's like, "Hey, someone do this!" And Babs is like, No, everyone's busy. And so he just leans up against the wall and pulls out the rebar and then pours whiskey on it. And so, Matt, do you like Bullock now?
More than I did before, which was not at all. But I like Babs better, so.
Well, I mean, when it comes to Gotham City cops before Gotham Central, it's the two main ones are Bullock. Outside of Gordon, are going to be Bullock and Renee Montoya.
Is Bullock, is he a badass? Because here's the thing. This moment I thought was really cool, but I was under the impression he was kind of just like an overweight, sloppy cop.
No, he's not sloppy. He's schlubby.
No.
But
yeah.
And he's kind of like, maybe he has like his lazy moments and stuff, but he's usually depicted as, at the end of the day, he's actually like a really genuine cop. But also,
he's
not the biggest fan of Batman, though.
Is this whole thing like tearing the rebar out of his arm and pouring all of that? Is that normal for Bullock?
Yeah,
more or less. I mean, I'd say he's like he's like the exaggerated stereotype of a cop almost. So like Bullock will go eat donuts and shit, but also he's supposed to look like a good police officer.
He can go die hard when he has to.
Yeah, but he's often like not against, but he's often in opposition or at odds with the rest of the GCPD or something like that. And as Mike said, he's often at odds with Batman.
Okay.
He's at odds with Batman, but in terms of his kind of character biography, he strikes the dirty line sometimes, as he has taken bribes and he has a use of excessive force, and when trying to break up organized crime in Gotham City. Eventually, that and his drinking habits get him fired from the Major Crimes Unit, which by the time Gotham Central as a book starts up, Bullock has been fired and he's kind of a drunk. He has a really, really good story later on in Gotham Central, but by that point in the Batman continuity, Bullock's no longer a cop, and he's kind of persona non grata. You don't mention his name in the Major Crimes Unit,
Right.
but people will still swear up and down that Bullock was one of the best cops and detectives in the city. So like if you're heard like talking shit on Bullock, people will come after you in the department.
Sure.
And just for reference, I believe Gotham Central is around 4 to 6 years from now. Because that will follow when Greg Rucka and Brubaker do their runs on the main Batman books.
I would say a lot of, at least for me, but this is I think a case for a lot of characters. Harvey Bullock has kind of became more of a major factor as watching him in the animated series because he was one of the main supporting characters outside of Gordon and Alfred. He has a very big kind of force there, along with Montoya being brought in. But it's basically Bullock and Montoya as the big main cops until we get to Gotham Central.
Okay.
Yeah.
I believe Bullock is just barely pre-crisis, so he's probably a Doug Monk creation.
He's actually, I looked it up, he's an Archie Goodwin and Howard Chaykin creation.
Oh, so then he's a way back.
Apparently Archie Goodwin liked him enough that he kept putting him in stories and made him a full-on supporting cast member.
Yeah. Lucius Fox, that's a Len Wein creation. Matt on Daily Spider Bites, go check that out on Instagram. Just finished Len Wein's run on Amazing Spider-Man.
I did, yeah.
And allegedly Len Wein made more royalties for Lucius Fox's appearance in the Nolan trilogy than in all of the X-Men movies, which starred Wolverine. Another tragic tale of royalties.
I mean, to be fair, though, I mean, Morgan Freeman was playing Lucius Fox. And
right.
Hugh Jackman was nobody when Wolverine was cast.
If Morgan Freeman had played Wolverine, then that would have changed everything.
So Bullock goes to look for Gordon, finds him, and so Gordon's fine. And the Batcave is flooding, so Bruce goes scuba diving since all the other exits from the cave are blocked. And he's like, maybe there's an exit I can find underwater, maybe not. And right as he's underwater, submerged, the aftershock hits. And so it's not like a big reveal final page, but it's like shit's going down.
Yeah, like it's only going to get worse.
Right, definitely.
I like this issue. I don't think there's as much to say about it compared to the first one we talked about, and it's obviously not as good or standalone as Nightwing.
No, but I did enjoy everything with Oracle, and I'm really looking forward to seeing more of her.
And I'm trying to remember. I thought the art was solid.
I like the sequence of Batman rappelling out of the cave, pulling himself back up out of the chasm.
All right, Mike. Talk about everyone's, or no, Matt. Sorry.
No, I'm gonna talk about Azrael because he's a funny meme man.
Well, before you talk about, tell us what you know about Azrael.
What do I know about Azrael? I know that during Nightfall, he became the new Batman. I know that he had a really outlandish costume. Correct. I know that he is edgy. He's 90s. And that's literally it. That's all I know.
Matt, who co-created Azrael?
You asked me this because someone I am familiar with. I don't know.
It is someone you're familiar with.
Joe Quesada.
I
did not know that. That's amazing.
And this is how we're going to connect it to a past show. If you want to find out more about Azrael's origins, we did a Calcast way back on Batman's Sword of Azrael, the miniseries that introduced him.
So yeah, go watch that.
Which is drawn by Joe Quesada. So if you want to see Joe Quesada draw Batman.
For now, though, we can talk about Azrael number 40, which has a pretty neat cover with Bane's on there. I know about as much about Bane as I know about Azrael, so it can be cool.
Yeah, but you
And
saw Dark Knight Rises, right?
yeah, I saw Dark Knight Rises. I was under the impression that's not the best depiction of Bane.
Well, you've seen Batman and Robin, right?
I've also seen Batman and Robin, but does he even speak in that movie?
He says bomb.
Yeah, okay. Which I'll get to Bane in a minute. I had some interesting thoughts about Bane. So this issue was written by Dennis O'Neil and drawn by Roger Robinson, and now someone who knows what they did can talk about them.
So O'Neill has basically been working on Batman going back to 1970,
Right.
and uh, kind of reinvigorated the character alongside Neil Adams and Frank Robbins back then with the sexy globetrotting Batman, and then kind of went off to Marvel actually for some bits of the 80s and is now back at DC and is basically the master Batman editor of this era.
Yeah.
And Robinson started at Malibu doing whatever the hell, and he draws Azrael 31 to 68. So we're going to see a lot of Roger Robinson Azrael.
Cool.
And after that, he moves on to be the artist for Batman Gotham Knights, a new series, and becomes an actual main series Batman artist instead of Azrael.
Okay. So this issue starts with Azrael and a hairy boy flying Bane in a helicopter. Mike, who's the hairy boy? I don't know who
I
that
have
is.
no idea.
Oh, really?
No
Okay.
idea.
I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't think it's an important character.
Yeah,
He's
that's
flying the
why.
helicopter.
He might
He has a
just be
weird.
part of the. I think he's someone who's just part of the Order of Saint Dumas.
I don't know, but like he has weird speech bubbles and he has glowing red eyes. So I assumed he was someone important. But
Oh,
okay,
maybe.
what?
Maybe. I don't even remember.
Okay, well, Azrael and the hairy boy are taking Bane in a helicopter to go get him locked up. And just as Bane's about to be locked up, the earthquake hits. So clearly, Bane staged earthquake to break free because
Master
I'm, I'm,
tactician.
I'm, I'm making that up. I don't know if that's true or not. But
It's not
Azrael
true at all.
puts on his sweet red and gold costume with a hood. It actually does look kind of cool. Like I don't hate it entirely.
No, I like
Even
this
though
costume. He gets a much worse costume later.
I don't get the Hellboy gloves. But like I don't mind this
Basically,
costume.
the gloves act as his utility belt. He can store stuff on them, but he also has like these blades that pop out too.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Um, it looked like Dennis O'Neil read Watchmen, because this issue it has a framing device of a bunch of news people talking about what's going on, which I guess is kind of cool. While Azrael is chasing down Bane, and pretty much this entire issue is just a knockdown, drag-out brawl between Azrael and Bane. I clearly don't know anything, so I'd never read anything with Bane before, and I knew he was supposedly smart, but his speech is even more eloquent than I had anticipated. And he seems like a pretty cool character, I suppose.
Yeah, I
The
like
fight
Bane a
between
lot.
what?
I like Bane a lot.
So far I think he's all right. The fight between Azrael and Bane is pretty fun. And I mean he just kind of beats Bane and then wins. And they're setting up some sort of like dichotomy between the two of them.
Well, they fight. They fight during Nightfall. The whole thing is that Bruce gets broken by Bane, and then John Paul Valley gets his bat power armor, and he beats the shit out of Bane to the point where Gordon is like, "All right, you need to stop, or you're gonna kill him." And he like throws him. The iconic scene in Nightfall is like he beats the shit out of Bane and like throws him off a roof down in front of all the GCPD, and he's all battered and bloody. So they kind of have a thing against each other. Also, I'm assuming Bane has no venom at this point because he was kind of captured before this, so he's not kind of full strength.
I was going to ask you about that because I mean he doesn't have the tubes all over him, so I assume he doesn't have venom. It also seems like Azrael doesn't have to put up too much of a fight to take him down, so I'm assuming this is not full strength Bane.
Also, you mentioned tubes. It was one tube it was like a wrist gauntlet that goes to the back of his head. I don't know when suddenly it became like he has 1,000 on his back, but yeah, it was one tube.
I see. I did not know that.
It's just something that's transformed over time.
One tube.
But
you didn't know that either.
Yeah.
So,
I like Bane a lot as like positioned as someone who could be like Batman's opposite in terms of like masterfully planning something. But he's just kind of jobbed out.
In that Gotham
Knight
series I referenced, eventually there's a part of the run where Bane thinks that he might be Batman's half brother.
Oh yeah.
What?
But
that's ridiculous. We already know Batman's half brother is Lincoln Marsh.
That's like the only Batman joke you can make.
I don't know where I pulled that name from, but I'm pretty sure that was right.
You pulled it from Court of the Owls.
Well, yeah, I know. I can't believe I remember it.
Court of the Owls, he has this problem where you have to use him sparingly, because if you keep using him and jobbing him out, he's not a force anymore.
Yep.
So, I think between now, like it's because he became a big popular villain. He was used a lot, and then to me, like I don't really met all of the more memorable Bane stuff from recent memory, outside of the way Tom King's using him in his run because he's a big part of that. He kind of becomes a good guy in Secret Six, as he's trying to wean himself off Venom, and develops this little kind of relationship with Scandal Savage. Also, he rides a dinosaur at one point and looks awesome.
I mean, that's cool.
But yeah, Bane in Secret Six by Gail Simone is really, really cool.
But I ended up I was surprised by how much I enjoyed Azrael 40, which is to say that I enjoyed it at all. Because I was going into this, I only know Azrael from the memes, so I thought this was going to be trash, and I had fun with it, so that's kind of cool.
Well, it really isn't, because it is still being a book written by Dennis O'Neil. I will say, I think the weakest of these Bat books we're going to be reading is probably Catwoman.
Okay.
I love Roger Robinson's art.
Yeah, really cool.
I wasn't familiar with this era of the book at all. I'm not that familiar with him as an artist, and I really dig it.
I like the panel where Azrael's walking into a bank, and his cape is flowing out behind him. That looks super cool.
Yeah, he's kind of got Spawn cape.
Yeah.
As it can just be as long as whatever the artist wants to draw it as.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but you know what? I'm excited to see more Azrael. I can't wait for him to disappoint me.
Yeah, see, the Azrael issues as well, these were the ones I was dreading. And in fact, as we go on and get deeper into No Man's Land, there will be certain episodes where it will just be Azrael issues or Nightwing issues or Robin issues or Catwoman issues. And the ones I was most dreading were Azrael and Catwoman. And now we'll see about Azrael. As Mike said, we'll also see about Catwoman.
Yeah.
I think we'll see Azrael get his stupid blue and red suit that I hate in this, and that's by the time the book's called Azrael, Agent of the Bat. I think, which we will see that the subtitle come in during the series as well.
Yeah, that happens at 50. All right, Mike, close us out.
All right, Batman 720. Well, sorry, Detective Comics 720, because the Batman is larger than Detective Comics on the cover. We got this cover of Batman drowning and gasping for air, but he's underwater. We got Chuck Dixon and Graham Nolan and Klaus Janson. Graham Nolan and Klaus Janson are artists. Chuck Dixon writing. We open with the city in ruins as more stuff's falling as the first aftershock is hitting. And we follow Helena Bertinelli, who is the huntress on this subway, as these mobsters are trying to rob people on this subway in the middle of all this. What the hell? We also see Detective Renee Montoya show up as well. Most of this issue is about Huntress trying to track down this mobster, and then we cut back to Batman swimming and exploring the now pretty much underwater Batcave, trying to find a way out to connect into the city. Eventually, Huntress deals with the mobster in her own way, where an explosion happens because of the aftershocks, and basically she leaves him for dead because he's not worth saving, considering what he's done to all these other people. But cutting back to Batman, he's now made it to he's made it out, and he's in the kind of the Gotham Harbor, and he looks up and he's now seen the wreckage that Gotham is in as he's just screaming no. Pretty basic issue here. As we're setting up to what follows. I liked seeing Montoya. I liked seeing Huntress here. Huntress still really not on page with Batman. Like, Batman is not okay with her at this time. Also, we get to see Harold.
Yeah, and he just gets insulted by Alfred.
Did we see Harold?
What?
Harold shows up and then gets insulted by Alfred.
Well, yes.
Oh, I didn't even realize that's who that was.
So Mike,
I know who Harold is. Mike's told me about Harold.
Oh,
yes,
so you know who Harold?
I've told Matt about Harold, but for those who don't know who Harold is, he's a character who's kind of a Quasimodo-esque guy who is a mute genius who kind of like Forge, but not exactly, because he doesn't have powers. He's very good at building machines. So he was hired and basically captured by the Penguin and forced to make like the umbrellas and different gadgets for him. And Batman saved him and gave him a job at basically being the new engineer repairman in the Batcave. He lived in the back of the Batcave, and he was always kind of like a side character that would help out with stuff. And Alfred kind of have like this, him and Alfred, from like the stuff I've read where Harold's around, they kind of have this little budding thing going on. But Harold is then, this is actually probably, these are the last appearances of Harold. He leaves after No Man's Land. And then we don't see him again until we revealed that he sold Batman's name out to Hush, and then Hush kills him. Wow, way to ruin him.
Way to ruin Harold.
Yeah, it's because Hush got to a point where they backed themselves into a corner of who told Thomas Elliott that Bruce Wayne's Batman, and it's revealed that Harold did it in exchange for surgery to make him better. Well, Bruce was like, you could have just came to me and I would have paid for the surgery. I don't know why you did this to me. I forgive you. And then it's like, it's the first time they've seen each other in years on the page, and then like Hush just shoots Harold right in the head from like 20 yards, like from some stupid yard amount of way with a pistol, and then they fight. And then it gets even more convoluted when it's revealed that it was Jason Todd who also kind of told Batman that identity and was able to get into the cave with Red Hood Lost Days. So nothing makes sense and nothing matters.
Yep.
But yeah, that's Harold.
So one note here. Tragically, we only have one more issue from Graham Nolan.
Wow.
But we at least get to see him for 2 issues, unlike Kelly Jones. And so another longtime 90s Batman creator is on their way out as No Man's Land gets up. What did you guys think of the art in this issue?
It's Graham Nolan, so I like it.
I thought the art was pretty cool. I didn't particularly like Huntress. I don't think she's all that interesting. But the art's, yeah, I guess she looks good.
Well, you'll be seeing a lot more of Huntress as it's revealed she takes on the mantle of someone else later on.
What did you think about Montoya, even though we get way less of her.
I can't really say. She doesn't really do a whole lot in this issue.
Don't even think she's on enough to really form an opinion.
Yeah. I like detective ladies, so we'll see.
Hispanic detective ladies.
That helps.
So that's that.
That's episode 2. Tune in next week.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for the next episode. This was I don't know what I expected.
Just to give an
but
idea, we're decently into. My bookmark is here, so we're decently into Cataclysm. It'll read pretty fast.
I'm looking forward to seeing Batman do some Batmaning because he swims in some water and that's like about it.
Well, we haven't seen Robin yet. Robin will eventually join us.
Okay.
So we'll get your takes on Tim Drake, Robin.
Matt, I will say that if you're hoping for Batman doing Batmaning, next episode, Cataclysm Part 2, might not be getting a ton of that. So
yeah.
The issues for next episode, Catwoman 56, Robin 52, a one-shot Blackgate Isle of Man, Batman Chronicles 12, which that's like their quarterly anthology, so that could be anything. I don't remember off the top of my head. And Nightwing 20.
Okay.
So we're not even getting a Batman or detective next episode. But
interesting.
Should be exciting. And then the following episode we'll get back into some of the flagship books. So thanks for watching this one. Tune in next time. Go back and watch the first episode and subscribe, like, and
go back and watch Saga the Clone Saga, because technically
all of it from the beginning.
It's a prequel to this.
Thematically, emotionally. All right. Bye-bye.